I'm shocked. My affair told him, "Hey loser, I'm taking care of your wife now. Get out of here." Hey Reddit, I'm still quite in shock even after a few days, so bear with me as I try to piece together everything that has happened. My life was already complicated, but what happened recently has turned everything upside down. My name is Anna, and my husband's name is Thomas. I am 25 years old, and my husband is 28. We've been married for about a year, but we've been together since childhood. For the most part, we had a very happy relationship. We were very happy. I had a desk job, a normal 9 to 5, while Thomas worked for a very large company, which I'll keep anonymous for privacy purposes. He worked in cybersecurity, and his pay was very good. However, things started to change after our son was born. Since my job wasn't bringing in much and was more of a placeholder, we decided that I would quit and become a stay-at-home mom, while Thomas became the primary provider. Our relationship shifted into something more traditional, with me handling all the chores and everything related to the household, while Thomas focused on providing for us. He did his best to help out whenever he was home, taking on chores and always choosing to stay and watch our son whenever possible. But then, of course, bills started to pile up. Having a child meant more expenses, and you all know how costly it is to give birth in America. So the financial pressure mounted, and Thomas began working long hours to support us. He tried to work remotely from home to spend more time with us, but for some reason, that wasn't possible, so he had to keep going into the office every day. Balancing taking care of our child and managing the household was a challenge I had never faced before. It was our first child, and despite my best efforts, it took a toll on me. As a result, Thomas and I started growing distant. We were both overwhelmed by the new responsibilities, and our relationship began to suffer. As the months went by, Thomas and I started drifting apart more and more. It began with small changes. Our conversations became short and surface level. Parenthood and our new roles were taking a toll on us. I was adjusting to staying home full-time, which was a huge shift from working my desk job. With constant feedings, diaper changes, and sleepless nights, I was exhausted. Managing the house and taking care of our baby felt overwhelming, and I struggled to keep up with everything. Thomas was caught up in his job. He was working long hours and was often too tired to be present when he got home. By the time he walked through the door, he was usually buried in work emails or taking calls, even late at night. Our time together became all about chores, schedules, and bills, rather than just spending time in each other's company. Our amazing sex life also started to disappear. Date nights became a rare occurrence. It was all now quick dinners and early bedtimes. We hardly spent quality time together, and when we did, it felt forced. Our communication broke down. Instead of talking about our feelings, we just avoided the issues or brushed them aside. The emotional gap between us grew wider as we focused more on our individual tasks and less on each other. We started disagreeing more often. Little annoyances that we used to ignore now became major sources of frustration. I felt unsupported and unappreciated while Thomas felt stressed and disconnected. Our arguments became more frequent, and we began to wonder if we were still on the same page. Eventually, the distance between us became too noticeable to ignore. We stopped confiding in each other and started seeking support from friends or even strangers. We used to have a connection that had seemed unbreakable, and now it was just strained. It felt like we were just going through the motions of daily life without the bond we once shared. I thought about complaining, but I held back. Deep down, I felt like it was all my fault. If I had a job, I could have contributed financially and helped ease the burden on Thomas. But he was taking care of everything, and I felt responsible for the strain on our relationship. Thomas genuinely tried to make things better. He started making an effort to talk to me and be present when he was home, even though his work commitments made it nearly impossible. Despite his efforts, I found myself resenting him. It seemed unfair that he could leave the house whenever he wanted while I was stuck at home dealing with our baby and all the household chores. The thought that he had the freedom to step away from it all while I didn't weighed heavily on me. Even as our baby grew older and started sleeping through the night, which eased some of my exhaustion, my frustration with Thomas didn't go away. I still felt a sense of bitterness. I was spending most of my time at home, feeling isolated and overwhelmed by the daily routine. I kept my distance from him, partly because I felt like he didn't fully understand my struggles, and partly because I was angry at him for having a break from it all. We never really addressed the growing gap between us. Despite the changes in our baby's sleeping patterns and the reduction in my fatigue, the resentment still stayed. Our conversations remained superficial, and we avoided discussing the real issues. The divide between us kept widening, and we both seemed to accept it rather than confront it. We drifted further apart and were unable to bridge the emotional gap that had formed between us. I began to feel unwanted and increasingly isolated. The more I resented Thomas, the more it chipped away at my self-esteem. I felt invisible, and that led me to crave attention from elsewhere. Even though deep down I knew Thomas wasn't entirely to blame, my feelings of resentment blinded my judgment. If I couldn't get the attention and affection I needed from him, I would get it from others. Looking back, I realize how stupid that was. My need for validation and affection drove me into the arms of someone who seemed to offer everything I was missing. That's how I ended up falling for James. James and I met at a comic convention, which now seems almost laughable to me. I'd never really been to a Comic-Con before that day. A friend had invited me, and since I had nothing planned, I decided to go. Thomas had actually suggested I take the day off. He said I needed a break and offered to stay home with the baby while I went out. Instead of doing something I genuinely enjoyed, I went to Comic-Con. That's where I met James. At first, it was just a friendly chat. I didn't know much about comics, and I admitted that to James. He offered to teach me more and told me he could recommend some fun ones for me to start with. He was handsome, easygoing, and gave me the kind of attention I was craving. I knew it was wrong, but I really didn't see the harm in just being friends. Our relationship began as friends, but the more time we spent together, the more I fell for him. I should have known James would be cocky, but at the time, I didn't see it that way. I thought he was just a kind person who paid attention to me, and that was enough to pull me in. Our friendship quickly took off. We started texting the day after we met, and, before long, I was constantly on my phone chatting with him. I shared everything with James, my frustrations, my dreams, and my daily life. James suggested I check out some comics, which was new to me. Honestly, I don't even know why I went to that Comic-Con in the first place, and I regret it more with each passing day. I had been stuck at home so long that I had lost touch with many friends. When one of them suggested doing something, even if it wasn't my usual thing, I jumped at the chance. James and I kept texting, and soon Thomas noticed how absorbed I was in my phone. I told him it was because I'd gotten into TikTok and was enjoying it. It wasn't entirely a lie, but it was a convenient excuse to hide the truth. As James and I got closer, he suggested we meet up outside of our texts. I eagerly agreed and started talking to Thomas about getting a babysitter. He was surprised but agreed, since the bills weren't as bad and he could afford it. We hired a babysitter, and I started spending more time out. Going out with James was a blast. Honestly, I had missed being social and lively. I had promised myself nothing would happen, but my attraction to James was too strong. Despite my best intentions, I ended up sleeping with him, and my promise felt like it had never existed. I hate to admit it, but I was incredibly easy for James. I was so desperate for attention and affection that any bit of kindness from him made me melt. Before I knew it, we were having a full-blown affair, as if my marriage didn't even matter. I would drop our son off with my parents or siblings who, ironically, were more than happy to help now that he was older and not a newborn anymore. It's funny how that worked out, because when I was struggling with a crying baby, none of them were available to lend a hand. Anyway, after leaving the baby with them, I'd head over to James's place and spend time with him. It wasn't an everyday thing. I couldn't just keep drop off our child without raising suspicions. Sometimes, if my family wasn't available, I'd arrange for a babysitter instead. Thomas and I had a joint account, but he didn't mind what I did with the money as long as it wasn't anything extravagant, so I used that to cover the babysitter's fees, ensuring Thomas wouldn't find out about my time with James. It was a delicate balancing act, and I thought I was managing it well. But looking back, I realized how foolish and deceitful I was. James had so many red flags that I didn't see, and now I can't help but blame him for everything. He always insisted we hang out at my place instead of his, even though he lived alone and it was clearly safer there. Looking back, it was obvious he was trying to manipulate me. He got off on having control over me and my situation, but I didn't realize it until it was too late. James was also incredibly jealous. He constantly needed to know if Thomas and I were intimate or not, and would demand that I reassure him over and over that he was better than my husband. It was all so ridiculous, but I was so desperate for the attention and validation he gave me that I never took a step back to question what was really going on. Instead, I let myself get caught up in his game and ignored the warning signs that should have made me pause and rethink everything. As I got closer to James, I started drifting away from Thomas more and more. Things had been distant between us before, but now it felt like there was a huge gap. Ironically, just when I was getting deeper into my affair, Thomas got a big promotion at work. All those long hours and overtime finally paid off. He had more money and time, and he was trying hard to fix our relationship. I was so angry. Why couldn't he have gotten that promotion before I met James, or when things were just starting to go wrong? Why didn't he try to fix things back then? His efforts to make things right came too late for me. I was so wrapped up in my affair that I couldn't see his efforts clearly. I was absent during our date nights and turned him down when he tried to be intimate. I could see how much I was hurting him, but I was too lost in my own mess to do anything about it. I guess I never really tried hard enough to hide my affair. I probably thought Thomas would never suspect anything, or maybe I just didn't think that far ahead. But of course, karma has a way of catching up to everyone, and it caught up with me sooner than I expected. Stupid James, like I mentioned before, was always pushing for us to hang out at my place. That day, my parents weren't home, and I sent them a message asking if they could watch our son again, but they had already gone out. My siblings were at work, so I had to drop the baby off at the babysitter's. After that, I went back home. James and I had this routine. I'd drop off the baby, and he'd come over and wait for me outside. I came home to find James not waiting as usual. We went inside, had some food, chatted, and then headed to the living room. We were intimate there first, before moving to our bedroom. I didn't hear the front door open or even a car pulling into the driveway. All I remember is my husband opening our bedroom door. James and I hadn't even thought to lock the door. Why would we? It was supposed to be just us at home. When my husband walked in, I was in shock. James was still on top of me. We scrambled to cover ourselves up while Thomas stood there with his phone, recording us. I thought James might try to leave or at least join me in pleading with Thomas, but instead, he just looked at him, called him a loser, and told him to get out because he was taking care of me now. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. James' arrogance and total lack of empathy made everything even worse. I had never seen Thomas so furious, though he was trying hard to hide it. Thomas had always been good at controlling his emotions, and even though he seemed calm, I knew he was seething inside. To make things worse, James, with his ridiculous ego, tried to get back on top of me, as if nothing had happened. I pushed him away. My heart was racing and my mind was spinning with shame and panic. Then my husband lost it. His calm facade cracked, and he screamed at James to get out of the house. But James, being his usual arrogant self, just stayed on the bed and told Thomas to do his worst. My husband lunged at James, and I stumbled out of the way and hit the floor. James, who was caught off guard, was no match for Thomas. He started landing punch after punch, and I was too shocked to stop it. Part of me thought James deserved every hit he was getting. He'd been so cocky and disrespectful, and, honestly, I felt he needed to face the consequences of his arrogance. Thomas kept beating James, and James couldn't even try to fight back. He just lay there, taking the hits. I should have intervened, but I didn't. James had brought this on himself, and besides, what could I do? When Thomas finally stopped, he was breathing heavily. He demanded to know where the baby was. I told him, and without saying another word, Thomas stormed out to get our son and cool off. I was left alone with James, who was battered and bruised. The rest of the details are pretty mundane, so I'll try to speed through them since I'm exhausted. After the fight, I called an ambulance for James and used his phone to reach out to his family. I knew his password, thankfully, so I called his parents and sister. When they arrived at the hospital, I felt too overwhelmed to stick around, so I left without explaining anything. I was terrified and didn't know what to do. When I got back home, I found all my things thrown out onto the porch. Thomas had come home while I was gone and had obviously been busy. I felt like I was on autopilot. I packed up my stuff, called an Uber, and headed to my parents' house. I barely managed to explain what had happened before I collapsed into my room, just lying there because I was in shock. The next day, I told my parents everything. They were horrified and disappointed, especially since Thomas had never been the type to resort to violence. I tried to reach Thomas, but he didn't reply. I waited a few days and still nothing. I'm completely confused and at a loss about what to do next. I also reached out to the babysitter, who told me Thomas had picked up the baby. So now I'm turning to Reddit because I don't know where else to go. I feel lost and bored at my parents' house. I tried contacting James to see how he was doing, but he hasn't responded either. I know getting involved with James was a huge mistake, but I still feel responsible and need to know how he's doing. Everything still feels like a whirlwind, and I'm not sure how to move forward. That's why I'm reaching out here, hoping for some advice or perspective on what to do next. Update. Hey Reddit. I didn't expect to be updating this soon, but here I am. I'm still figuring out how to use this site since I don't post much, so I hope I'm doing this right. The backlash has been intense, but honestly, I was expecting it. Even the DMs have been rough. I've tried to reply to the kind and curious ones, but I've had to ignore or block the hateful messages. I'm already going through a lot, and I don't need extra negativity from strangers online. I've seen a lot of judgment about our decision to have kids and get married. Some people are saying we shouldn't have had a child if we weren't ready, but here's the thing, we didn't plan for it. I had an IUD, and I thought that was reliable. When I found out I was pregnant, it was a shock. We decided to keep the baby, and that's why we got married sooner than planned. Yes, it wasn't the best reason to rush into marriage, but we were already thinking about it. Even if we had planned for a baby, having one is a lot different than just thinking about it. Spinning with all kinds of scenarios. Thomas also still isn't talking to me. My parents said if he doesn't respond soon, they might go to his house to check on him and see how the baby is doing. I'm really scared and unsure about everything right now. I guess that's all I have for now. I'm not here to be judged for my choices, so please save your criticisms. I honestly don't have much of an update. James still hasn't reached out, and I'm nervous. Part of me thinks about going to the hospital to check on him, but then I worry about what might happen if I do. It sounds like a bad idea, and my mind is spinning with all kinds of scenarios. Thomas also still isn't talking to me. My parents said if he doesn't respond soon, they might go to his house to check on him and see how the baby is doing. I'm really scared and unsure about everything right now. I guess that's all I have for now. Hey Reddit, it's been a few days and I'm getting used to using this place as an outlet. I wanted to give another update. Please, no more hate comments or criticism. They really don't affect me. I even saw a video of my post on TikTok with some weird Minecraft background. It was kind of funny and a bit scary because I don't want anyone I know to stumble across it. But whatever. So here's the actual update. James finally got back to me. His first response was a voice note where he cursed me out, but he did let me know he's doing okay. Thomas broke his nose and twisted his ankle, but besides some bruises, he's fine. I told James I'd come and try to talk things out, but I'm still unsure if I should. Thomas still isn't talking to me. My parents went to check on him and see how the baby is doing. They said Thomas is okay and the baby is fine. Thomas told my parents that he doesn't want to talk to me right now and that he'll reach out when he's ready. My parents didn't stay long because Thomas wasn't in the mood for a long conversation, so they left. I'm really hoping Thomas will come around soon. Honestly, I'm exhausted and still feel like I'm on autopilot. I hate that I ruined my marriage and that I ever met James. I'm just so confused right now. Thanks for reading, I guess. Hey Reddit, it's been a few weeks since my last update. I apologize for going radio silent. I didn't have much to share until now. So here's the latest. Thomas finally came around. I reached out to him again, and he responded. He agreed to let me visit and see the baby, which I was really relieved about. I was so anxious about being apart from him. I went over there, spent some time with the baby, and had a long talk with Thomas. During our conversation, Thomas admitted that he had only suspected the affair before and finally confirmed it from our messages. He said I didn't do a great job of hiding it, and he's not sure whether to feel relieved because that enabled him to find out, or angry because it seemed like I didn't even care enough to hide it. He told me that we were done, that he could never forgive me after seeing me with another man, and that he would be serving me with divorce papers soon. He also mentioned that he wanted custody of the baby and that he would give me 40% of our joint account, even though he felt I didn't deserve it. At first, I cried and begged him. I was honestly heartbroken and still am. I still love Thomas and hoped we could work things out, given our past and connection. But when he mentioned taking the baby, I refused. I don't want Thomas to have custody. I suggested we let the court divide our joint account, but Thomas just laughed and said I'd probably get nothing because of the strict divorce laws in our state. He implied that if it went to court, I'd most likely lose custody. I'm not sure if that's true yet. My parents have set up a meeting with a lawyer, and I'll be seeing him soon to get legal advice. As for James, I haven't gone to visit him even though he's been discharged from the hospital. I'm considering going, despite my parents advising against it. They think checking up on him is enough, but I feel I owe him a face-to-face conversation to clear things up. Thanks for reading, and I'll update again once I have more information. Hey Reddit, I wanted to wait a bit before updating you all to get more information. It's been a few weeks, so here's where things stand. I finally visited James. He looked pretty bruised up. Thomas really did a number on him. We had a conversation, and honestly, James hasn't changed. He was still as arrogant as ever, but it seemed like Thomas's actions had taken a toll on his ego. James blamed me for everything and said he never wanted to see me again. He told me that all of this was my fault and that he should have known better than to get involved with me. He even said I should be thankful he wasn't going to the police. I didn't have much to say. I apologized, mentioned his arrogance as a factor in what happened, and then I left. It's probably the last time I'll see him, and honestly, I have no intention of having any more relations with him. Regarding Thomas, he was right about the legal situation. I consulted a lawyer, and the laws in my state are incredibly strict. Just the fact that I cheated and that Thomas had evidence could be enough to lose primary custody of the baby. The lawyer advised me to accept Thomas's offer because fighting it would likely result in a worse outcome. Even potential alimony wouldn't be as much as what Thomas had offered. So I reached out to Thomas, told him I had reconsidered, and that if I got served, I'd sign the papers without fighting or challenging them. That's where things stand for now. I'll update again when I get served or have more info, I guess. Hey Reddit, I finally got served. Thomas did it himself, and honestly, I didn't know how to feel when I saw those papers. I think I cried a bit, but it was all such a blur. I just remember sitting there, staring at the documents, feeling completely numb. After that, I took a long nap, maybe to escape from the overwhelming reality of it all, or maybe just to try and get some rest amidst the chaos. I know it probably sounds like I'm just dumping all these details, but right now it feels like I need to get it all out, even if it seems pointless. This whole process has been so draining. Of course, I should have known Thomas wouldn't just keep quiet about the evidence he had. He went all out and sent it to everyone we knew, my family's group chat, all our friends, and even a few distant acquaintances. My phone has been blowing up nonstop with messages and calls. It's overwhelming, and I'm struggling to keep it together. I'm so angry. Thomas didn't just leave me, he made sure everyone knew exactly what happened. He didn't even give me a heads up or a chance to explain myself. It's like he wanted to make sure that everyone saw me at my lowest. I've sent him angry messages demanding answers and an explanation, but he's not responding to any of them. I feel completely drained. The whole situation is exhausting. I can barely function properly. I'm dealing with the fallout from the affair, trying to navigate this legal mess with Thomas, and now facing public humiliation on top of it all. Just when I thought Thomas and I might find some common ground, or at least have a civil interaction, he goes and publicly exposes everything. It feels like an extra layer of betrayal. Like the pain from the affair was multiplied by this public humiliation. It's hard to believe that we were once close, and now everything is falling apart so dramatically. I keep thinking about what could have been. About how things might have been different if we'd handled things differently. But now I guess it's all out in the open. It feels like everything is falling apart, and I'm just too tired to deal with it. I don't even know what my next step should be. I'm hoping that time will help, but right now, I'm just trying to get through each day. Hey Reddit, it's me again. I didn't think I'd be updating, but here I am. I got locked out of this account and forgot the password, so it's taken me a while to get back in. I feel like I owe you guys an update. The divorce is finalized now. Honestly, I'm at a loss for words. It's been a blow. 1 minute I'm okay, and the next minute I'm not. I'm just exhausted. On the bright side, I ended up with 40% of our joint account, as Thomas had agreed. It's a decent amount of money, so at least I have some financial stability. Thomas got custody of the baby. I had hoped for joint custody, but I had signed the papers, so that's what happened. I get to see the baby on weekends and for visitations. No debts to split, so that's a small relief. The house was Thomas's before we even got married. It was a gift from his parents after college, so I'm moving on from that too. I need to find a job, but I'm struggling. I'm feeling so depressed from everything that it's hard to focus. Plus, I've been a stay-at-home mom for a while, and I think I've gotten used to it. I miss Thomas. I miss what we had, even though I know it's over and I've brought this on myself. The money I got from the divorce has been helping me get by, but I'm thinking of moving out of my current place. I'm stuck in autopilot mode, and my family has been a huge help, so I'm reluctant to leave. I keep thinking it's a dream. That I'll wake up and it'll all be fine. That Thomas and I will be fine. My parents keep assuring me that, with time, Thomas might forgive me, but we both know that's a lie, and that they're just trying to make me feel better. I guess I got what I deserved. It's been a rough journey, and I'm considering deleting this account. The hate comments and DMs have been maddening. Thanks for reading and for the support.